Woe. Woe, woe, woe to the nations. It is I, the Adon, who strikes. It is I who strikes. Say to the nations, it is time. Nebraska, Nevada, Honolulu, floods. You will be flooded. I am hated. You hate me. Tell them all that I say. I strike. It is I who strikes. Death. A total number of death will occur. I am bringing an end to the nations. The wicked. It is time. The one who you hate strikes. Okay, hello everybody. My name is Yahuah. Today's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to add the clip of the prophecy for today, and then I am going to elaborate what Yahusha has given me. Okay. So Yahusha is saying that it is time. It is time that the nations will be striked. When this prophecy was coming to my mind, when he was speaking of, it is me that is doing them, I thought of people having conversation of, why is this happening to us? God, save us, save us. But he's actually the one doing all of this. I hope I'm making sense. God is not going to save no wicked. He's the one causing this. Woe is a declaration of in the Bible of horror, terror. Yahusha is saying, woe. Woe is coming. Terror is coming. Apocalypse. And when I say apocalypse, I just mean a really intense state of the world that we really have not seen before in our generations. We're in the last days. We're in the time where we will see the rise of the beast system. So in order to get to that, chaos must arise. We know that those in control of the world right now are slowly causing a little bit of chaos. We see what is happening with Russia and with Ukraine, and we saw all of those. Who's Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Italy. There was other presidents and prime ministers there from 5 other countries. They're gathering, and that was the first time, I may have to add a clip, that was the first time that they have gathered like that in a very long time, and they said it was for the sake of Russia.
World leaders have arrived in Italy for the G7 summit. This year's meeting is set to focus on global conflict. Leaders have reportedly agreed on the terms of a $50 billion loan to Ukraine, backed by the profits from 300 billion euros in frozen Russian assets. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will also sign a 10-year bilateral security deal with the US to train Ukrainian armed forces, as well as an agreement with Japan for long-term support. Outlining the issues on the table, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said she expected concrete results from the talks.
We will talk about the current crises, starting with Ukraine and the Middle East. And we will start with the work by Japan to create solid and reliable supply chains. We will discuss what is probably the most complex challenge of our time, the arrival of artificial intelligence, clearly with the idea of taking advantage of the opportunity and governing the risks. And we will go back and look at the importance of giving our attention to the Indo-Pacific.
DW's chief political correspondent Nina Haza is at the summit. She has more on how G7 leaders aim to boost support for Ukraine.
Well, one of the strongest messages that the leaders of the 7 most industrialized countries definitely want to send from this summit is that they stand by Ukraine's side and that they are trying to support it in the long term in its fight against Russian aggression. And one way to do that is to solidify, if you want, financial support of Ukraine. So make it less dependent on changes in governments in a particular country. Say if another US president were to be selected and chosen by the electorate there, then what would that mean for support of Ukraine? All these risks they want to get out of the way. They want to give Ukraine a big chunk of money. We're hearing some 50 billion euros worth of loan that they would take out, and the interest would be paid by windfall profits from those frozen Russian assets that exist in those 7 countries. And then President Zelensky from Ukraine is going to attend the summit as well. He is going to sign the last 2 of those long-term security agreements with G7 countries, so the US and Japan. All the others have already signed those 10-year security agreements with Ukraine, and that is a milestone for the country as well that says it needs to have flexibility now, but it also needs to be able to look into the future and know that its allies stand by its side.
What I'm trying to say is that meeting that they had was because they have plans for war. We look at the prophecy that I gave last week or 2 weeks ago. War. Satan is preparing his people that are in control of the world for war, for chaos, for starvation, for an apocalyptic state of the world. Yahusha, the Adon, is striking the wicked right now. Satan is setting the world up for his son, who many will fall for and believe that this is quote unquote Jesus, the Messiah. But it's actually going to be the beast. On the other side, Yahusha is saying, "Woe," in lamentation. And it is I doing it. Meaning, we will see death. We will see floods, waters. We will see judgment upon the nations. Not just only to people, but also to the nature aspect of things. Flooding. Waters will be brought up. Deaths. Starvation. This is truly a time to not be playing with Yahusha, or you will get caught up in all of this. We all know the story of Nineveh. Yahuah made Jonah go to Nineveh. Nineveh was a very populous city, and they were very wicked. Yahuah made Jonah go and declare to them that they have, I believe it was 60 days to change. If they did not change from their wickedness, Yahuah was going to take them all out. The king of that city declared that nobody, not even animals, will have water. And Yahuah pardoned what he was going to do to them because they turned from their wickedness. In today's time, nobody wants to turn from their wickedness. In fact, we love the wickedness. The world now has chosen Satan's values, and they're okay with that. So, because Nineveh turned from their wickedness, and Yahuah pardoned what he was going to do to them, on the flip side, in 2024 and beyond, people don't want to turn from their wickedness. This thing that was done to Nineveh, this is what the Adon desires to do to us now, but we don't want him to. He desires to turn his wrath. But how can he turn his wrath from nations that love darkness, that love sin, that love what he hates, and hates what he loves? He's left with no choice. This earth is a filth to him. Babylon has puked on all of the nations and corrupted us all. America has puked out. America is the most wicked. I don't like using the word matrix, but I really don't care. That's the best way I can. America is so far from Yahuah. It is crazy. He is not there in that nation, except for the very few individuals that live there, that love him. America has taken its filth and vomited that on all of the nations. And now Canadians act in this way. Now Nigerians act in this way. Filipinos act in this way now. Of course, not to the high extent of America, but like I said, America, Babylon, modern Babylon has puked. And now the nations will partake in her judgment because they wanted to partake in her wickedness and her values and her traditions and her wickedness and her filth and her debauchery. I'm going to read Revelation chapter 18 just so we can really understand this prophecy in full, okay? And after this, I saw another messenger coming down from the Shemayim, having great authority, and the earth was lightened from his esteem. Shemayim is heaven's sky. And he cried with a mighty voice, saying, Babel, the great is fallen, is fallen and has become a dwelling place of demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean and hated bird, because all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her whoring, and the sovereigns of the earth have committed whoring with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the power of her riotous living. And I heard a voice from the Shemaim saying, "Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues, because her sins have piled up to reach the Shemaim, and Elohim has remembered her unrighteousness. Render to her as indeed rendered, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mixed for her double. As much as she esteemed herself and lived luxuriously, so much torture and grief give to her, because in her heart she says, I sit as a sovereigness, and I am not a widow, and I do not see mourning at all. Because of this, her plague shall come in one day, death and mourning and scarcity of food, and she shall be burned up with fire, because Yahuah, Elohim, who judges her, is mighty. And the sovereigns of the earth who committed whoring and lived luxurious with her shall weep and mourn over her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torture, saying, Woe! Woe, the great city Babel, the mighty city, because your judgment has come in 1 hour. And the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her, because no one buys their merchandise anymore. So what that's saying there in verse 11 is that when Yahuah destroys America, the other nations will weep also, because it will also affect them. America's judgment is going to affect every single one of us. And the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her, because no one buys their merchandise anymore. Merchandise of gold, silver, of precious stone and pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, all citron wood, every object of ivory, every object of most precious wood, and bronze and iron and marble, and cinnamon and incense and fragrant oil and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and cattle and sheep and horses and carriages and bodies and lives of men. And the fruit that your being longed for has gone from you, and all your riches and your splendor are lost to you, and you shall find them no more, not at all. The merchants of those who became rich by her, shall stand at a distance for fear of her torture, weeping and mourning and saying, Woe! Woe, the great city that was dressed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls! For in 1 hour, such great riches was laid waste, and every shipmaster and every passenger and sailors, and as many as worked the sea stood at a distance, and cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What is like this great city? And they threw dust on their heads, and cried out, weeping and mourning, and saying, Woe, woe, the great city, in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth, for in 1 hour she was laid waste. Rejoice over her, O Shemaim, and you Kadesh emissaries and Nebim, for Yahuah has completely avenged you on her. So this is basically saying, rejoice, O Shemaim, heavens. Rejoice, you set apart emissaries, you set apart prophets. For Yahuah has completely avenged you on her. So for the set apart ones, for the small remnant of us that are spread out everywhere, across the earth right now. Yah is doing this for the righteous. He's saying rejoice. And one mighty messenger picked up a stone like a great milestone and threw it into the sea, saying, with such a great rush, the great city Babel shall be thrown down and shall not be found any more at all. And the sounds of harpists and musicians and flutists and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more at all. And no craftsmen of any trade shall be found in you any more at all. And the sound of a milestone shall not be heard in you any more at all. And the light of a lamp shall not be shine in you any more at all. And the voice of bridegroom and bride shall not be heard in you any more at all. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth. For by your drug sorcery all the nations were led astray. And in her was found the blood of the Nebim and the Kodashim, which is the prophets and the set-apart ones. So in her was found the blood of the prophets and set-apart ones, the holy ones, and of all who were slain on the earth. That is Revelation chapter 18. I highly recommend we just sit there on your floor, on your couch, your dining table, wherever is comfortable for you, and just sit and really speak with Yahusha and just let his Holy Spirit teach you what that chapter says. I will continue. That is why the nations are being judged right now. All those who had pleasure in unrighteousness will be in the lake of fire, meaning all those who do what Yahuah hates will partake in that lake of fire. Me, myself, Ayul, if I go back to who I was before I knew Yah, I will also be like the wicked and I will partake in that. Nobody is exempt unless they love Yahuah. These are the times that we are in. This is the word of Yahuah.